Walking along a path at the roots of Pikes Peak, you take a fork in the road toward the Anselm Society Digital Pub. Inside is a raucous conversation on the arts, faith, and aren't knights supposed to wear armor? Why are they wearing white satin? In the corner table by the fire are three people. One of them is realizing just how innocent and naive she used to be. That's me, your co-host, Mandy Hauk. Welcome to Believe to See, a podcast of the Anselm Society Arts Guild. Here at Believe to See, we explore the relationship between faith, art, and storytelling. Our goal is to connect the great story, the great stories, and our own stories so that we can better understand what it means to live with a Christian imagination. So first, let me introduce and welcome my co-hosts today. Hello, Christina.
Hi.
How are you?
Great.
Was my opening reference, are you too young for my opening reference?
I just kept thinking Arthurian stuff, but I did not understand it.
Okay, well, stay tuned, young lady.
All right.
How about you, Matthew?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You have no idea what I'm talking about.
You're going to explain it, right?
Oh, I'm totally going to explain it. The people my age are already laughing at me. Mm-hmm. 2 words, moody blues. Anyway, okay, we'll get to it.
That didn't help.
I know, because you're youngins, but that's okay.
Thank you.
It's okay. You're welcome. Tonight, I just wanted us to talk about things that we remember, impressions that were made on us when we were younger by various types of art. So books we loved and music we loved. And paintings and photographs, and just sort of delve into why those things made an impression on us and how it's impacted us to today, you know? So we'll just, should I start? I was going to start with books, but I'm feeling the pressure to explain my opening. So
I say you're the engine. You go with whatever you feel.
Let's start with music then.
All right.
So that you guys will potentially understand. So
okay,
I wanted you guys to think of like the first music or song or whatever that really had an impact on you when you were younger. So Christina, what did you think of for that?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking that I was kind of thinking as I was meditating on this question, how lucky I was that some of the songs that made the deepest impressions on me were scripture based, in the sense of like how much they formed me, and realizing that I was lucky to have parents who offered me that. I don't know. Sorry, I'm just kind of thinking through that. But back to the answer in the question. I listened to Michael Card's Lullabies.
Oh my gosh, Christina, you're going to make me cry.
Right?
I have the piano book for that.
Oh.
I used to sing Sleep Sound in Jesus to my girls.
Yes, exactly.
We had it on CD back in the day.
Oh, yeah, same.
I'm trying to remember right now. Bethany was dedicated to one of the songs, and now I can't remember which one it was.
She'd probably remember, yeah.
No, she wouldn't. She was an infant.
Okay. Oh, that's precious, though.
But yeah, it was from I love Michael Card.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. Well, and he did too. He did Sleep Sound in Jesus, and then the Come to the Cradle.
Okay, Sleep Sound in Jesus is the one I have.
Oh, we had both growing up, and then when I was pregnant, I was like, it went on my registry right away. I was like, the CD, and I was like, I need this.
Yeah.
So that formed me, and I would say it formed me like because I remembered those songs way into adulthood, and the lyrics and the beauty of Card's way of tenderizing Christ's love.
Oh, I love that word.
Yes, right?
Excellent. Yeah.
And putting the listener in obviously the child's shoes. So even as an adult or as a teenager, you can kind of feel that vulnerability and being sheltered by God. And so I remember my mom would put that on for me like every night, and it just became this like calming soundtrack, because I had, what I didn't know then was OCD, intrusive thoughts, as a kid. And it's a very fearful, anxious child. And so even my mom didn't know it at the time. I just internalized a lot of things. so that those lullabies just like imprinted themselves into my brain.
I love how God like works things out like that.
Yeah.
Like you were given exactly what you needed, even though you and your mom didn't know that's what you needed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for my girls, I would play that for them, alternating with Kenny Loggins' House at Pooh Corner, Loggins and Messina to be exact, and randomly a CD of a Hawaiian group that we heard at a luau in Hawaii.
Well, how fun is that?
I know.
That's cool.
So those were the 3 CDs. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really does stay with you. So
it does. It really does.
So as an adult now, have you, like, has it ever happened that one of those songs has come on without you expecting it and like it's impacted you, or do you play them
like
for your kids?
in my head? Oh, I do play them for my kids.
Oh yeah. That's cool. And so how does that feel for you? Like
it's a really good question. It's a very powerful and humbling feeling, and especially because both my kids love them. Music keeps Edmund up at night, but it puts Edith to sleep, and she just loves these Michael Card lullabies.
Right. Yeah.
So and so they share a room, so I have to kind of like pick and choose when we actually put the music on and when we don't. But it's so precious, and even me hearing some of these again, it's like, oh my gosh, like hearing it again, like as an adult, being in the shoes of a child and realizing what a child at heart I really still am. Not like child at heart, but like
but you're a child of God.
Yeah, what a young child in like the age of, in the age of God's timelessness that I am. I guess if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And the other. So there was another song. It was did you guys do the Hide 'Em in Your Heart, Steve Green kids?
I do remember Steve Green, but I don't remember the songs as well.
Okay, yeah, he did a couple series for kids, Hide 'Em in Your Heart, and this one was really interesting because he did one called, and I still remember how it goes, When I am afraid, I will trust in you.
Oh, I know that.
In you. Yep. I will trust in you.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's like straight from scripture. Yeah. And it's a little girl who sings it, and in the middle of the night, she's woken up by a thunderstorm. Because he did videos to go with some of these songs.
Okay.
Yeah. So, of course, I had it on VHS. And so this little girl is woken up by a thunderstorm, and she turns on the light, and she she turns on the light, she picks up her Bible and reads that scripture, and she's the one singing it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and then her little brother knocks on the door because he's scared, and of course this is all wordless, it's the music is going over it, but he comes and snuggles into bed with her. Aww. And she pats her Bible and puts it down, and snuggles with her brother and goes to sleep again. And for some reason that stuck with me, and so I would say, so even in college, I remember I had, when I was diagnosed with some of the like anxiety and OCD that I'd referenced as a kid that I didn't know I had, that song came back and it just stayed with me. It's the When I'm Afraid, I Will Trust in You. And like, it was like a jingle, but like a spiritual jingle.
No, I mean, there's a reason it's catchy, and there's no reason, that's not a bad thing.
No, I thought it was, it was beautiful. In that
That's
moment.
really cool.
Yeah.
Your answer is a lot more spiritual than mine, but that's okay. How about you, Matthew?
Glad you said that, Mandy.
I will be the comic relief for the evening.
Well, just wait.
I'm making you wait.
Mine is the Eagles.
Oh, I love the Eagles.
Yeah, so I'm
glad Evangeline can't stand the Eagles.
Well, that's her problem.
That's
Okay, fill people in for those who don't know who the Eagles are.
What?
Yeah, that's my response. But anyway, so they were popular in the 70s. They were a rock
70s, 80s, 90s to today.
That's right. So I would say they're
in the Hall of Fame.
They're rock, but with sort of a folk, almost country tinge to them, right?
Dude, I used to sing Desperado to my babies.
Desperado.
Absolutely. That is my, when I am asked, I'm sorry, I'm totally interrupting you and you're answering my question, but I'll be quick. When this is one of the advice, like little bits of advice that I give young moms, sing songs that calm you down when you are trying to calm your baby down.
That's smart.
And that's what I would do. I would sing Desperado to my babies, and it would calm me down because it's one of my favorite songs of all time.
So
continue.
Yeah, I was thinking first impressions for music because, like, I didn't really listen to a lot of songs as a kid, or if I did, they didn't stick. So it's like, okay, when I was like, early teenager, this was my dad's music back in the day, right?
Well, but
so he's like,
yeah.
So he shares it with me, so that's what me and my brother's like. Oh, so this is what cool music is,
Right?
Because
So
you
that
were
was, like,
young enough to think your dad was cool.
Yeah. So that was like our first exposure to it.
And
so,
it was Eagles? Yay!
yeah, so, Peaceful, Easy Feeling, Desperado, Take It Easy, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
In Hotel California, that one's great because my dad loved the Eagles. My mom hated the Eagles and thought it was inappropriate for my dad to be sharing it with us.
Oh, that is so funny.
She'd be like pointing out all the bad stuff about, like, in Hotel California. You know what this song is about, Dan? You know? And she like says it. Then I'm like sitting in the back, like 14, like, oh, this makes more sense now. I have very valued memories of driving through the mountains as a family, listening to the Eagles, my dad singing along, and my mom's lecturing my dad for singing along.
Oh, dude, I only realized that Cheap Trick songs were nasty like 10 years ago. And my husband was like, Mandy, the name of the band. And I was like, oh. So there is that like blissful
it all falls
ignorance.
into place.
And you know what? This segues nicely into my intro. So hopefully more of the listeners, I should see, before we started recording, I said, I'm not going to even tell you guys what the opening is because it's so funny. And it didn't even occur to me that they might not even know what I was talking about. So this blew up in my face. But there is a song by the Moody Blues called Nights in White Satin. Are you guys unfamiliar with that song?
No, I know it.
Okay.
Nights in white satin,
never reaching the end. Okay.
Yeah.
Little 7-year-old Mandy, in my head, it was Kniggets. It was nights. Nights. Like,
oh, I get it now.
So
those kinds of nights.
yes.
Oh, okay.
I am talking.
That is funny.
I did not realize that it was Nights Without a K in white satin and the implications thereof until I was in college.
Oh, that's so amazing.
And it's hilarious to think about, like, why did I think that knights were riding horses in satin? I don't know. But that was one of the first songs that I remember really liking that neither my parents nor my sister had introduced to me. So
It was your song. You found it.
that was my song, Nights in White Satin. And
That's
here
amazing.
I am imagining, because I'm such a visual person, that was, I mean, I'm sitting here right now, just as I'm speaking, I can see what I saw in my head.
Yeah.
They had armor on over the satin, but they were wearing white satin and they were riding their horses, never reaching the end. I just thought they were riding forever. Like they couldn't get to their destination because they were riding Nights in White Satin, never reaching the end.
It's a
Letters I've written, never meaning to send. So the knights were carrying the letters.
So, Mandy, I'm
Yes.
curious. So,
Yes.
Christina had this very nice
I know.
first
I said that
impression
her answer was much
that,
more
like,
spiritual.
impacted her today. Mine was,
Yes.
I guess, a lot of my current musical tastes, you can say, were shaped by that.
Yeah.
Because the music I listen to is kind of folk with, that I guess you could draw kind of a zigzaggy line from the Eagles to that.
Right.
Do you feel like your early first impressions have had any later impacts on you?
Well, okay. So to be fair, I only brought that one up because I remember it being funny. That was not my actual, the first song that really made an impression on me. So that was just the comic relief for the evening. But no, so the song, my answer to this question is because my dad used to sing me to sleep. And my dad traveled a lot And so when he was home and was able to tuck me in and sing me to sleep, it was extremely touching, and it's a very cherished memory for me.
Yeah.
And he was a very large man, and he would lie in my little bed with me, and I can even remember like the weight of his arm on my stomach. And he would sing me, of course, You Are My Sunshine. But he would also sing me songs. He sang me Tom Dooley, which is Hang Down Your Head, Tom Dooley, Poor Boy, You're Bound to Die. So, questionable choices. But the song that is most visceral for me is Red River Valley. Are you guys familiar with that song?
I don't think so.
I am not going to sing it. So everyone will. It's a really, I asked my husband earlier, I'm like, they'll know Red River Valley, right? And he's like, I don't think so. But anyway, so it's a cowboy song. It was
Red River Valley. Am I close?
not even.
Not even. That's funny.
Okay, I'm going to try to sing. I am not a singer, but it's, and I'm also probably going to be
Give me
crying.
that Red River Valley. Am I
Okay,
closer?
well,
Is he closer?
Okay, I'm not worse than you, so I will go ahead. So it's from this valley they say you are going. I will miss your bright eyes and sweet smile. For they say you are taking the sunshine that brightened our hearts for a while. And I'm now crying.
I was going to say, now I'm going to cry about that.
I know. So it's a cowboy song. It was recorded it was originally recorded like in the 20s. But like it's been recorded by Arlo Guthrie, like George Strait. I mean, yeah, if you look it up, like it's been recorded by lots and lots of people. But my dad used to sing it to me, and that, I don't know, there's something about like the imprint, I think is the word that you used, Christina, and just sort of the love that I felt from my dad. And so that really just soaked, I would say it soaked into me.
Right.
And I think a lot of the songs, there are other songs my dad sang to me that probably you won't have heard of, so I'll just continue. A lot of them were cowboy songs.
My dad liked some of those too. Yeah.
And I think the common thread in those is that there's a narrative.
Yes.
There's a narrative in those songs.
Yeah.
And so for me, the way that has impacted me, I mean, obviously I love story, but I kind of expect it out of songs. I expect a story, even if it's just like a snatch of a story. And I think I've said this on the podcast before, that is integral to how I write. That is how I develop my characters. I have playlists for each character, and I like most of the time it's a folk song because that's kind of the common thread of folk songs is the narrative, and like typically there's some kind of like angst or longing.
Yeah.
I mean, Desperado, hello. Even Desperado, that's a story song. Even if it's just a hint of one. There's not a beginning, middle, and end, but there's a feeling in the song that stays with you.
Yep.
Yeah, and if we're going to get really sad, when my dad was passing away, he didn't want us to come, and I sang that to him. I sang Red River Valley over the phone with him. Wow. That's like my last phone call with him. So it's really like, as a child, obviously I loved those moments, but I don't know if I knew how long they would stay with me, like 50 years later, literally. So that those are our musical impressions as children. So what about the first story or book? What was the first story or book that you remember loving?
Well, I mean, mine are still very along the lines of child. I loved Goodnight Moon, which, sounds obviously, like, oh, every kid loves that.
Well, but there's a reason every kid loves that. So that's not.
I love Goodnight Moon.
That's not a reason.
I know, that's what I mean.
Where's the mouse? Let's find the mouse.
Good night, comb. Good night, brush. Good night, nobody.
Good night.
Good night, mush.
Mush. That's
Yeah.
right.
Good night to the old lady whispering, hush.
Yep. I know. Yeah, and I think part of it was my mom read it to me. It is the earliest book I can remember. I remember how she said it. I read it the same way to my kids.
Oh.
But also there was something about, and this kind of goes into my other example too, there was a book, and of course I meant to look, I actually, again, one of those things I searched for for my kids when I had kids, but it was a illustrated version of Teddy Bear's Picnic, you know? And it's out of print now, so I had a hard time finding it. But again, it was the visuals that captured me as a small child, and I really wanted those for my kids. So even in Goodnight Moon, part of what I loved about it, even as a child, was there was something about the beauty of the calmness. I loved cats, so the cat's playing with a ball of yarn. But there was something about the moon. The moon captured me. And to this day, I love the moon. And so I don't know, something about that book just caught my imagination and stayed with me. And then Teddy Bear's Picnic, I would just say, again, it was a song my mom would sing, but like the pictures, like illustrations were a big deal to me as a kid. And I'm still extremely picky about my illustrations. And
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, if people want to look up, we did a whole podcast on wordless picture books.
Yes, we did.
Because you
You're right.
love those.
You're right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Teddy Bear's Picnic was one of those I remember right away. Just beautiful, full-page illustrations, all kinds of teddy bears having mischief and making merry and eating delicious snacks of all different colors. This big picnic spread. And yeah, so anyway, yeah. But yeah, those are the things I think that kind of stayed with me, and they kind of shaped a little bit of what, still catches me today.
Yeah. That's interesting because it's sort of a like chicken and egg thing. Like,
I know, it's such a chicken and egg
did
thing.
those things capture you because of who you were and
Right.
that's carried, or like how much of it was like formative versus?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What
Yeah,
about
do
you,
I
Matthew?
do I like this stuff now because I read this as a child, or did I read it as a child because I've always actually liked it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that is definitely the case with me because I was going through, trying to think of the books I liked as a kid, and the topics is like, oh, this is the stuff I like and write about today. Huh.
Nice, yeah. Oh, I
So-
love Magic Treehouse, by the way. Sorry.
Do you know, it's funny. I was actually, before we did the podcast, I forgot I was going to do this at the beginning and try to guess books that meant a lot to each of you. And
Oh, that's so
books
fun.
or shows.
It's not too late.
Yeah, it's not too
Okay,
late.
well, Christina, I was going to say Secret Garden. I mean, that's a little on the nose.
Not the book, the movie.
No, okay.
Yes. I never
Visuals, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The movie, yes, absolutely
Yeah.
adored it.
And I
Little
realized
Princess,
that
same.
the show I'm thinking of, Matthew, I keep thinking, I keep aging you guys in my brain, but I was thinking Land Before Time. Have
Oh, I
you ever
love
seen?
Land Before Time.
But don't you think he would love Land Before
yeah.
Time? Hello.
I have some very vague memories of watching Land Before Time.
Okay, well, watch it again. I feel like it'll ring a
It
bell.
had like some humanoid guys, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they freaked me out. I was very easily frightened as a boy.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
But-
anyway, what
Yeah,
what
so
books are you
the-
gonna bring?
What I ended up coming to is a book series I read late elementary school, early middle school. It's called The Incredible Worlds of Wally McDougall
I
by
have not heard of
Bill
that.
Myers. So he
Okay.
wrote the series between 1993 and 2007. I was going through the list. There's 28 of them.
Whoa.
I read like maybe the first half because
All one author?
second half I kind of aged out of them. But basically,
Hold on,
it is
Matthew.
about...
Sorry.
We're pausing.
So, Wally McDougall. So it's about this kid, this 12-year-old kid, who's a major dork. He's like skinny, he wears these big old glasses, and his main thing is he's a really good writer. And the thing about it, because the adventures, they start off pretty commonplace. Like the first book is called My Life is a Smashed Burrito with Extra Hot Sauce.
Oh, that's so cute.
And it's about him going to summer camp. And then they quickly turn a little bit more exciting than that. So then he goes on a hot air balloon ride, goes on a mission trip to South America. These are like Christian books.
I was about to say mission trip. Okay.
Then he becomes a spy. He goes into space. He time travels. So things get a little out of hand toward the end, right?
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, I don't think I'm exaggerating much when I say that Bill Myers kind of taught me how to write. Like, I think he's had about as much influence on my writing style as anything. So if you'll allow me, and if this is boring, we can always just cut this out. I trust Matthew Clark's instincts. I want to read
Our editor for
the first page of the first book. And like the sense of humor, the asides, I feel like a lot of my writing is me just trying to imitate Bill Myers and Wally McDougall.
Well, I'm sure Bill Myers listens.
There you go.
So he will be glad to hear that.
We shared the same literary agent for a while.
No way.
Wait, what? Are you serious?
Yeah, I sent him an email once and he responded. He was very nice. Anyway, here it goes.
Okay, I'm ready.
Don't get me wrong. Camp Waka Waka wasn't the worst experience I've ever had.
You would totally name a camp.
When you're the
Waka
shortest
Waka.
kid in 6th grade, forced to wear Woody Allen glasses, this is the 90s, all your life, and basically serve as the all-school punching bag, you've got lots of bad experiences to choose from. But Camp Wacko, that's what we called it for short, definitely rated right up there in the top 10. I knew I was in trouble the moment I stepped onto the camp bus. Of course it was full of the usual screaming crazies. No surprise there. I mean, you take the politest kid in the world and put him on a count on it. It's law or something. What caught me off guard was the flying peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Open face, of course. No! I tried to duck, but I was too late. Ka-thwack, right in the old kisser.
Ka-thwack.
Fortunately, the jelly was grape, my favorite. And by the gentle aroma of freshly baked peanuts, I knew the peanut butter had to be Skippy. Another lucky break. He goes on from there.
See,
I was reading it, I was like, oh yeah, that sounds a lot like my writing style now.
You didn't write that? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, so this book series, I probably started reading because like my parents found, I was like, oh good,
clean kid fiction.
It inadvertently taught me how to write. So
did you ever throw a peanut butter sandwich at anyone is what I want to know.
No, but I think the self-deprecation of the narrator, a lot of the diction, the sort of asides, the approach to the misfortunes. I feel like I have adopted that, maybe even subconsciously in a lot of my writing. So yes, the incredible worlds of Wally McDougall. I owe it quite a bit.
Do you prefer Skippy peanut butter?
I don't care about brand, but it needs to be crunchy, not creamy. I insist on crunchy.
I like both, but I prefer
Danielle
crunchy.
has like the healthy kind. Blech.
Yeah, that's what I buy now.
Oh,
so
Mandy.
I know. When you get old, life has to be sad.
But yeah, I have other books I can talk about later, but Wally McDougall has to take center stage.
Around. So for me, Charlotte's Web I was obsessed with Charlotte's Web. When we would get sick and have to stay home from school, which my mom, we had to be sick. Mm-hmm. We couldn't just not feel good. We had to have a fever and other symptoms for her
fever
to let
plus.
us stay home. Fever plus. But just to make sure we weren't trying to stay home just for fun, we weren't allowed to watch TV or anything. So we had to stay in our rooms, which, make little introvert Mandy stay in her room and read books. Oh no! Anyway, the horror. So I would read Charlotte's Web straight through and then start again.
Whoa.
And read it. I mean, I would just read.
Wow.
I literally have and I mean, I wasn't sick very often. We were
right.
But I didn't only read it when I was sick, but I remember if I was sick, specifically, that was my preferred way to spend the time.
That's amazing.
Was to read specifically Charlotte's Web.
I bet you have a lot of it memorized now.
Oh yeah, and I mean, right now I can see that. Do you guys? Can you, when you close your eyes, can you see Fern on the first page, reaching, trying to get her dad to stop?
I forget.
Yeah, she's trying to stop him from killing the pig.
I remember that. I just don't
Yeah.
know the illustration. I read it once. It was too sad for me.
Okay.
It's beautiful.
Because
No, I still love it. I still
Charlotte
love it.
dies at the end. She dies.
Yes, but
I
she
know.
has, well.
Spoiler alert.
But here's what's interesting, and this sort of goes into what I was going to talk about later, but we'll just flow. What's interesting to me is how I view things now in contrast to how I viewed them then. Because Charlotte's Web, I mean, E.B. White was an essayist and a very snarky, sarcastic one. Mm-hmm. But people mostly know him for Stuart Little, Charlotte's Web, and some people aren't familiar with Trumpet of the Swan, but I love the Trumpet of the Swan. Those were all his.
Yeah, that's a good one. Forgot about that.
When I got into high school, I still loved E.B. White. I probably read Charlotte's Web like way past when I quote unquote should be reading it. By the way, I'm one of those moms. I say let your kid read whatever they want to read as long as they're reading. It does not matter. Like Bethany read Judy B. Jones. Sorry, Bethany, but Bethany read
I remember those.
Judy B. Jones way into when she could have been reading like, I don't know, To Kill a Mockingbird. No, not that. But anyway, I really don't try to get your kids to read at their quote unquote level. Just let them read. Bethany's book that she would read over and over again was Tales of Despereaux. I think she read it like 4 times in a row. And but anyway, all that to say, the love of reading is what you're trying to pass on. Not specifically what they're reading. It's the love of reading. So I read Charlotte's Web into probably middle school. It was like a comfort thing for me.
Like it, yeah.
And so then my mom got me a book of E.B. White's essays when I was in high school. And my mind was blown because have you guys read any of his essays?
I haven't.
Because he was very like sardonic and like hilarious. And of course, you know, E.B. White from Strunk and White's Elements of Style. He is the white in that.
Wait.
He is. Did you not know that?
This face I'm making is me connecting all these different parts
dots.
in my head. It's like,
Strunk and, Elements of Style, Strunk and White.
Yeah.
White as
Wow.
in Charlotte's Web. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So really now, if you look at Charlotte's Web, that is a children's book with a giant wink because it is really satire. It's totally satire. Because if you think about really what he's talking about in Charlotte's Web is how gullible the American public is in believing whatever they see in print. Because there is a specific moment, because you remember so there's sweet little Wilbur, who's he's just a normal pig. But Charlotte writes amazing things about him to save his life in the web. And there's a moment in the book where everyone's like, wow. And it says some pig in the web, right? And so they're like, that's no ordinary pig. And the farmer's wife says, seems to me that's no ordinary spider. But everybody's like, psh, it's just a common gray spider. And so everyone believes what's in print and it diverts their attention from what is actually wondrous, which is Charlotte.
Interesting.
Because she's pointing them to the pig. And so it's just interesting to me that this story that impacted me so much as a child, because of, really it was Fern. It was Fern's earnestness and her passion and her love for the pig and how she saved him. And she did everything she could to, you know, like taking him to school, feeding him with a bottle.
Yeah.
You know, all the stuff that she did to save him. All that appealed to me as a child. But then it informs me so much, like as an adult. It's just interesting to go back to the things that charmed us as children.
Yeah.
And see them with adult eyes, you know. So, I don't know. Charlotte's Web was my thing. And then also Narnia in general, which has just impacted me in like the way that I just love wonder, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that was do you guys have other stories or books you remember? You said you had more.
I do.
Matt?
I don't know if they are stories. So this was weird because I was going through the books that I loved, I just like stare at, right? Mm-hmm. And we had a collection of sort of little stories that were about different types of dinosaurs. I tried thinking of the title.
Dinosaurs? You?
I know, right?
Okay.
And I can't even begin to think of what the title was, but it was like 10 different stories, each one about a different dinosaur. But the thing about it isn't necessarily the story, it's the art that went along with it, right?
Oh. Are we all visual? All three of us?
I just think there's just so much to the visual eye. You just can't
Yeah.
deny it.
You're definitely visual, gardener lady. But, so what about it, Matthew?
I think it was just so they had like 3 or 4 different artists who worked on the book. So like each artist had like their own little collection. So it's like, oh, here's how this artist drew like a Tyrannosaurus Rex and a Stegosaurus, and this artist did the Pteranodon a different way, and you'd see all this going, and I found it fascinating. You could just stare at the pictures for a long time. They're very primal. Like there'd be blood, there'd be guts, there's lightning, there's dinosaurs dying all over the place. It's just like pulsing with primal life all over.
You sound like my son.
And like,
laughing so much right now.
yeah.
And here I am connecting to Fern, reaching,
So I'm
asking
just like
her daddy not to kill
staring
the
at all
baby
of
pig.
these pages, just going through it over and over. Like I found the book in my parents' house, and like the cover's off, right? Because it's just completely worn to the nubs. And
Just from you, or did your brothers also?
oh, I think they did a little, but it was mainly
Okay,
me.
mainly you.
And I had another one. It was just it was basically an encyclopedia of North American wildlife.
Okay.
So it was like fungus, plants, fish, birds, mammals, all of them. They're all like categorized. But thing is, each one was accompanied by this very beautiful like colored pencil illustration.
Ooh.
So my grandma Pat had it. So whenever I'd be at her house, I'd just like flip through, like, ooh. Ooh, and just like stare at it forever. I found a copy of the book at an old antique shop, and I didn't buy it for some reason. And
Matthew!
I know.
What?
I was thinking about that. It was like, why didn't I just buy it? Because I'm cheap. That's why.
That is heartbreaking.
Yeah. So I'm just, again, I think you can draw the connection between the stuff I like doing now. You know, the dinosaurs, the other
Maybe.
creatures, just like me looking through these encyclopedias of wildlife. Like,
Right.
ooh. Look at that fungus, and just staring at it for a long time.
Now, you brought up just kind of a little side note. You said your grandma Pat had it.
Yes.
Were there specific books that when you went to your grandparents' houses, that you were like, oh, that book is there?
Yes.
Me too. Is that true for you, Christina? Not as much.
Toys.
Toys. Okay.
Yes. In fact,
Yep.
my mother said when she was getting rid of certain toys, she's like, we were like, no, Mom.
Yeah.
She's like, no, we're just going to take them to your grandparents' house. And then you'll only get to play with them here. And it worked.
So
My grandparents lived in the middle of nowhere. So when we went there, we had lots of
needed
things to do.
Okay. No, because when my daughters, as they got older and were not as into their books anymore, we went through them and we made 3 boxes. One was for Emmy to keep the books that she loved and wants to have for her children one day, and then Bethany for her children. But I got first pick, and I picked out the books that I wanted to be at Grammy's house. They decided I'm going to be Grammy. So
I love it.
So
It's important.
because I specifically remember, and my Mimi, that's what we called I only had one set of grandparents. My mom's passed before we were born, and I specifically remember, and in my brain right now, I can see my Mimi's built-in white painted bookshelves.
Aww.
And I would run, and my Mimi was she taught reading to adults who were illiterate.
Yeah.
And and so there were specific books that she would have my sister and me read to her classes to show them the joy of reading. And and I just viscerally remember like running to the bookshelf to get the books I loved.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matt, you were going to say?
Yeah. So there were certain books like that. And I'm also just going through in my mind, because it's kind of weird how well this worked, right? Usually, you pick a topic and you're like, well, if I kind of squint my eyes a little, there's a through line here. But the through line I feel is very clear here. with the sort of books I loved as a kid. It's still sort of the stuff I'm writing about now.
Yeah.
There's
really
a collection of
cool.
books
Yeah.
called The Great Illustrated Classics. I don't know if y'all are familiar
Yes!
with them. Yeah, so basically they're retellings of like big, classic books, but they're sort of retold so that, so a kid can read them, right? So they're like middle
Those
grade
are the
level.
first books that Emmy read.
Yeah.
Robin Hood.
I had a huge collection of them, and I'm thinking about my favorites.
Yeah.
There was the Sherlock Holmes one. I still love detective stories. There's Robert Louis Stevenson's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Okay.
I still love those sort of stories. Ivanhoe, so it's about knights and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Wow.
I freaking love that book.
Yeah, we had a whole set, and I used to be in the worship band at our church, and instead of getting a babysitter, when the girls were old enough, we would just have them sit there. And I remember Bethany was too little to read, so she would color, but Emmy, we got the Great Illustrated Classics, Matt, and we had the first set of it. And I was like, I don't know if Emmy's really old enough for these. And I remember I have this picture in my brain right now. I was standing up on the stage. We were doing rehearsal, and Emmy was sitting down there, and she, like, nobody could get her attention because she was just sucked in to that Great Illustrated Classics. And it was Robin Hood. And that was the first whole book she read.
Nice.
And she read H.G. Wells' Time Machine, which is a little dark for a
That
kid.
one freaked me out.
Her too.
The Morlocks, yikes! But yeah, and again, I'm trying to think this chicken and egg thing. It's like because again, I feel like I still write about the same sort of stuff. I write about Ivanhoe, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, dinosaur stuff. And again, is it because I happened to read those books at a formative age? Or did I latch onto those because it's always the stuff I naturally liked?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So along those lines, another thing, was there a visual thing, like a painting or a sculpture or something that you remember from being younger? And it doesn't have to be like a little kid, just what's the first thing that comes to mind when I say, what is the first piece of visual art that you... Like for you, I was thinking, Christina, the Garden at Versailles.
That'd be cool.
Not to peg you too much with the garden, but that's just how I think of you.
Or
It's
France. I mean, come on.
I mean, it's not a bad way to be pigeonholed.
That's true. That is definitely true. No, actually, mine was, it's funny because, with these questions, I'm going like very young. I'm thinking like, all these answers that I have are like the things that really did make first impressions on me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the art, I don't know where my parents got my mom. I'm sure my dad wouldn't remember it, but I don't know where my mom got it. But there was a painting or a print of something. I've still never seen it since. Don't know I don't know anything about it.
That's so cool, though, that you remember it.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, it terrified me.
It terrified you? Oh, no! So was it on your wall?
Yes.
What was in it?
Okay, so I eventually told my mom, and my mom took it down.
Oh, good. Thanks, Mom.
She eventually put it in our guest room, and then I wouldn't go in there. Well, I did go in there, but I wouldn't look at it. And anyway, it's very funny. I don't know whatever happened to it, but it's relatively harmless. And as an adult, I think it's pretty cool. But as a kid, it freaked me out. So it's this picture of a little boy sleeping, right?
Okay.
So a little boy sleeping in a bed, and outside is this big, there's this window, starry night, moon, beautiful clouds. I can't see, it's the moon thing for me. Moon. I don't know. Yeah. And there is this dark sort of shadowed angel figure in the background. In the foreground is more of a light colored angel figure.
Okay.
And they're kind of they're wrestling.
Oh, so it's like a spiritual warfare painting.
It is a spiritual warfare painting.
Wow.
So the angel is protecting the sleeping child.
I think I've seen this.
Really?
Because in my brain,
You can see, really?
I think.
Okay.
Yeah, or I made it up. I don't know. Maybe you're just really good with words.
Well,
you're a writer, so. No, but I think I can see it.
Yeah, you might, because it's weird because it was so good for me and yet terrifying at the same time. So
how was it good for you then?
I would say it was good for me in remembering that, in believing that God was looking out for me. Like he would send his angels to protect me.
God is bigger than the boogeyman. Junior Asparagus said so.
What is the song? God will give his angels charge over you. Oh, that's right.
Okay,
Never
see,
mind.
why is she singing after I sang? This is very annoying.
Desperado.
Why don't you go? All right.
You guys are hilarious.
No fair, Christina. Anyway.
It was good. So, but yeah, it terrified me. But I can still. It just stuck with me for years, and so I think I was just very terrified of evil and darkness and Satan and demons. Partly, I think, because I had those sort of like intrusive thoughts and fears as a kid.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I always thought Satan was after me. So I know, like, uniquely that painting or print or whatever it was not like a bad thing, but for me and my little heart, too much.
You were focused on the attack and not the defense. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yet, I still remember the powerful part about that was the angel, like, defending.
But you still didn't want to, like, have to think about it.
I didn't want to think about it, because it was very, I mean, it was a very sort of an attack position. Like, it was, it was very, like, as a kid, you couldn't miss the message, you know? Darkness was coming to get you, light was defending you.
I mean, can we just take a second? Like, art is, the fact that it can convey that much and it's just a still picture.
Yeah.
You know?
And I was so small when it conveyed that.
Yeah, I mean, as a small child.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why I wanted to talk about this. It's just because the things that we see and absorb as children.
Yeah. They really do affect us.
Come through.
They do come through.
Yeah. So
which is both scary and wonderful.
yes.
Yeah.
There was this very dorky song, "Be Careful Little Eyes What You See."
My mom sang that one to me.
Yeah. We are singing way too much in this episode.
Maybe we're not singing enough. But, so I find this interesting because Christina is like delving into like her very earliest memories. And I'm telling you about the things I thought were cool when I was 12.
Yeah, no, but I intentionally, little backstory. That is what I intended when I sent you guys the show notes. I really just wanted what stuck with you, and it doesn't matter what age you were.
Well, if you want me to give a
time.
teenager example on music, I will. I will be old hat and say it was still Michael Card, but it is themed.
I love Michael Card.
I know, I still like him a lot.
Yeah, we should interview him. Where is he at?
I don't know. I know his son. I know his
Let's see if we can. What?
I know his daughter-in-law.
Well, girl, get on that. We can interview him on the pod.
They're cool. They're very cool people.
Okay. So what was your teenager?
Oh yeah,
Michael
my teenager.
Card
So okay,
thing?
so I knew how I told you that I wasn't diagnosed with any of the OCD or intrusive stuff or anxiety,
Right.
all that until I was in college. So in high school, it had started to kind of get really bad, and still nobody knew what it was. Blah blah blah, and I was still internalizing it.
Right.
I still didn't tell anybody.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We don't know what's wrong with us because we think it's just us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So he wrote this whole album called Unveiled Hope. Do you know that one?
No, I don't.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. He took out all the stops with all the instrumentals and the brass, and
that's really cool.
It's about the Book of Revelation. So the whole thing is the Book of Revelation. And I just needed it so badly.
In your teenage
I
years.
did. Because
great.
there was one of the main songs was called To the Overcomers. And
okay.
Yeah. And so the whole idea of overcoming darkness, there was this, my fight with fear was not in vain, right? So in that part, there was that beautiful, his name is written on the palm of his hand.
Yeah.
You will become a column in God's holy temple. All of these things that are in the Book of Revelation, but they were put to beautiful music. And then, the city of God. And so, anyway, it just gave me chills every time. And so for me, I needed to kind of go to Zion. I needed to go to that place.
So that was your teenage years.
Exactly.
What were yours, Matthew?
Oh my goodness. So,
I mean, eagles. We have the eagles.
Yeah, we have the eagles. We have.
But wait, we were talking about
we have
visual
Wally
art.
McDougal.
Sorry.
Yeah, visual art. So I was going through this a lot, and I was not a big connoisseur of like painting and stuff as a child.
That's
but
okay.
What I loved was comic strips.
Yeah.
And if you were
Awesome.
to ask me when I was like in 6th grade, like, what do you want to be, Matt? I would have said, I want to be a comic strip artist.
You bring this up sometimes and you like dismiss it because you say I'm quote unquote not a good artist. I really think you should try anyway.
Well, thank
because
you.
what is good art? I mean, come on.
I should show you the series of of comic strips I drew as a kid. But yeah,
No,
so
show me what you draw now.
For me, there were 3 comics that stood above, head and shoulders above
Head
all
and
the
shoulders.
rest.
Okay.
There was
Calvin and Hobbes.
Calvin and Hobbes, which still holds up, and it's
does.
clearly number 1.
It
Yes.
still does.
There's Peanuts, which clearly holds
Clearly
up.
holds up.
Number 2. Then there's
Yeah.
Garfield. Didn't hold up so well, but I liked it when I was a kid.
Yeah, I
tried to imitate it.
Yeah.
I've told you about Garfield minus Garfield, right?
Yes. Those
Right.
are hilarious.
Everyone Google that.
Yeah,
But
Garfield minus-
anyway, the visual language of the comic strips I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
I attempted to draw so many of them, and it was just something that I enjoyed doing because it mixed together the writing and the visual arts.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it as writing necessarily at the time.
Yeah, a storytelling.
But it definitely started getting the groundwork going for it.
Well, it's one of those things, like, I remember when I was like, I love writing. I really want to be a writer. I'll do children's books. Those will be easy. Hello, no.
They are not.
No, they are not. And the same with comic strips. Like, if you think about it, what do they have? Like 5 squares typically?
Yeah. You need to be
tell an
very economical
entire-
with your words.
Yeah, to tell an
Yep.
entire story.
Yep. So that was, yeah, I would just read through the Calvin and Hobbes, on an evening.
Oh, yeah. I have
And-
a couple of their
Yep.
books.
Yeah,
books.
so that was very influential on the development of like the sort of way I try to like write jokes, the characters I try to develop, and I just spent a lot of creative energy like developing like the characters for my comic strip, right?
Right.
So that got me going too. So I would say those, and this one will shock you. The
Okay,
final
I'm
one.
ready.
Ready to be shocked.
The
Graced.
paintings of James Gurney and Dinotopia.
Oh,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, I know.
They're actually really good, though.
I don't even know what you're talking about. I was just...
I asked you about that book for Edmund, and I ordered it, and it never came. And then they ended up being out of stock. They're like, I'm just sorry. We're just going to refund you.
Okay.
We don't know what
Well,
it
you
is.
should
this
try
is
again.
payback for
Yeah.
you guys not knowing what I was talking about when I was talking about Knights in White Satin and Moody Blues.
So basically what the Dinotopia series are, they're books, they're stories, but the paintings are driving the bus here, right?
Yeah.
Like the stories are
Driving the
fine. The
They
paintings,
are.
the
They're
paintings
cool.
are spectacular.
They really are.
So it's like this,
Dinotopia,
yeah,
okay.
it's like this.
I will buy
it's
some
like
for
this
my Grammy box.
utopian
You should.
world,
You should.
this like idyllic world where dinosaurs and humans peacefully
They
coexist
peacefully
with each other.
coexist, yeah.
And
Like Land Before Time, kind of.
yeah,
Well,
only,
Land Before Time
only
didn't have
more
humans, though.
more civilized.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I saw like a commercial for it on TV just about the books, and I saw this picture of like this dinosaur, this like a brontosaurus walking down like a city street in like, old-timey medieval fantasy times, all decked out with like these turrets and festoons on. I was like, oh, like just blew my mind.
What
Oh, that's
age?
cool.
I was probably like 8 or 9 when I saw that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really the age that I was for like Charlotte's Web.
Yeah, so...
You get them for Sam.
And Knights in White Satin.
There
That
you
I
go.
was 8 or 9.
It's
That
it's
is
a
why I thought
formative
it was
time.
Kniggets.
And listeners, for those of you who are new, my current book is about a civilization where dinosaurs live.
And when does
alongside
this book
humans.
come out, Matthew?
August of 2024.
What?
Red Rex.
No
Check it out
way.
from Bandersnatch Press.
So excited.
So yes, I think you can draw sort of a line between Dinotopia in that.
I
It's
think
true.
maybe.
I think perhaps. Speaking of speaking on lyrics, Mandy.
Yes.
Oh, now Christina's going to do the serious stuff.
No, actually, I'm doing a unrelated aside, so it's just really quick though. You know the song, My Girl, she's like the month of May, or
Yeah.
it's got the month of May. Yeah. So when
It's cold outside.
yeah, exactly.
I've got the month of May.
That's right. That's right.
This is
That's
a very
right.
singy episode.
It sure is.
I think I sound pretty good. I don't know what my mom was talking about.
What can make me feel this way? Anyway, my girl. So when I was when I was working in high school, that song came on a lot in the pharmacy that I worked on, and one of the girls said, and actually I thought this was it too, but she said, yeah, when I first heard this song, I thought it was my girl, she's got the muffins made.
She's got the muffins made. I mean, that is a good trait of anyone, is to get the muffins
It's a good
made.
quality.
Good quality of a guy.
Can you
That is so
imagine
funny.
how wrong that song would go down?
Oh, that is funny.
And I literally could not hear it any other way
That's
after
so
that.
funny.
So anyway.
That's really cool. I could go on a tangent, but I won't.
Yeah.
I love misheard lyrics. Those
I
are
do
funny.
too. They're so fun.
So
Just wanted
for
to keep you company with the Nights in White Satin.
oh yes, yeah, nice and white satin. She's got the muffins made.
Yep.
So for me, I have two answers. One is from when I was a little kid about the visual art.
Yeah.
And one is from older. But for me, and this is a children's book that was published in, I believe, 1967. And I think I'm out of them now, but typically when I run out, I'll order like 5 or 6 more because I like to give this book to new moms because it is shockingly, for me, a book that most people have not heard of and I feel like everyone needs to own. And it's called Frederick. Are you guys familiar with Frederick?
am not.
think
Okay,
so.
Frederick should be the patron saint of, it should be Saint Frederick Society. That is how awesome Frederick is. So Frederick is a book by an artist and author, Leo Leone. He wrote it and did the illustrations. And the illustrations are torn paper. And so it's a little mouse who... all the mice are getting ready for the winter when they have to hibernate. And so all the mice are gathering seeds to eat and they're doing all the like tedious hard work preparation so that they don't starve and they're warm in their hibernation over the winter. And on each page, little Frederick is the little mouse is like standing off to the side, usually with his eyes closed. And all the other mice are like, Frederick, what is your problem? That is not a direct quote. But anyway.
I know, but it's
they're
still
like,
funny.
Frederick, help us gather seeds. Help us gather this. Help us gather that. And he will say, oh no, I am gathering colors. Or I am gathering sunshine, and etc. And so then once they're toward the end of the book, they're all hibernating. And when they run out of seeds, they're very sad and they don't remember color because it's dark. And they say, Frederick, share the color. And then the whole page is like covered with color because
that's
Frederick is
cool.
telling them about the color. And then the next page, he's sharing the quote unquote warmth of the sunshine, and the whole
Man,
page
how do I
is
not know
yellow.
this book?
And so,
cool.
oh, I know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm out of them. I will buy more.
No,
And
that's okay. I just need to look it up.
I don't know why no one knows this book. But anyway, so those illustrations just like made such an impact on me as a child. And I mean, hello, what is the message of the story? And it's that beauty matters.
Right.
Beauty is sustenance in the same way that food and nesting materials and all that beauty matters.
Yeah.
And so it's a chicken and egg thing.
Yeah.
Was I drawn to those illustrations and that story because I knew that and that was part of who I was, or did it for me in some way? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, but then the other piece of art that is impactful for me is Starry Night, Vincent van Gogh.
Yeah.
And he is my favorite artist. I absolutely,
Is he?
oh yes.
Oh, cool.
And God bless the goofy company that Peter used to work for that said he had to fly to Germany for a 1.5-day conference back in 2019. And my husband was very wise and kind and said, "Hey, Mandy, I have to go to Germany for a 1.5 days. So what if you came with me and then all we would have to pay for is your flight and then the hotel rooms wherever else we go." So this was pre-COVID, thank the Lord. And one of the days, so we stayed in Brussels, Belgium, for most of it until we went to Cologne, which, by the way, they won't know what you're talking about if you go to Germany and say Cologne.
Oh, really?
They say Köln.
Oh, really?
Ugh.
Okay.
K-O with an umlaut, L-O.
They don't know what they're talking about.
Anyway, but one of the days we took a train into Amsterdam and we went to the Van Gogh Museum. And we also went into Rembrandt's actual house. What?
Wow,
anyway,
amazing.
but yeah, Van Gogh, there's something about the passion and the recklessness with which he painted that has always spoken to me, in Starry Night
Yeah.
in particular.
Yes. I mean, that one's like, yeah, the recklessness and the different way that, he just lets you see it in a different way that's still completely accurate, and it's wild and it's beautiful. And it reminds me of Frederick. It really, the book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the fact that Van Gogh didn't, the way he was painting was ridiculed at the time because he used so much paint, and on the canvas it was like ridiculous because it was so thick. But I don't know. And then also, I mean, speaking of music, Starry, Starry Night by Don McLean.
Oh, that one's
Which had such an impact on me that for a long time I thought the painting was called Starry, Starry Night. So anyway.
Yeah,
but
definitely cried at that one.
I picture teenage Mandy just looking at Starry Night, listening to that music.
Oh yeah, Starry, Starry Night. Anyway, but
That song
I
makes
have
me
seen
cry every
Starry
time.
Night in person, and
Wow.
it's.
Did you cry?
Oh yeah, yeah. I also cry when I see Christina's World.
Obvious. Why are you even asking?
Christina's World is a painting by Andrew Wyeth
Oh, I don't know it.
that I.
It's my name.
don't
I should know it. Christina's
Girlfriend.
World by Andrew Wyeth.
Yes,
I need to look
it's
at it.
on my piano. We'll look at it in a minute.
All right.
Yeah, that one's at the MoMA, and I
Okay.
cry when I see that one.
Wow.
too.
Wow.
What is it about art that does that? I don't know. Answer the
Making you
question,
feel
guys.
things.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I know, it makes you feel things and stuff.
So cool.
So anyway, but have you guys, some of the stuff that you loved as a child or as a young person, have you changed the way you look at it now, or do you feel like it changed you?
I feel like the through line consistently
through
of all the
line.
things I said is that no, it has not changed at all.
It's confirmation of who God made Matthew Malama to be.
There you go.
There you go.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I look back and I see the threads, and and I still love all the things that I think I loved, and even the ones I can make fun of for myself. I'm like, yeah, but I can still see why I loved it, and I'm
Right.
glad that I was, exposed to it or listened to it or, read it or whatever. And there's some that just have grown, in love, like dancing and violin, love those two things. And
Right.
It's kind of taken a new shape. And I know one of your questions was like, do our kids share any of these things, passions that we had?
Yes, right.
Yeah. And I just, I don't dance right now. I never really, I did do some dancing, but I don't dance right now. Haven't danced since I had kids. Haven't really even played much violin since I've had kids. I've played some, but they've both somehow just grabbed that. Somehow they've just that passion for dancing and violin music has just indwelt them.
Yeah.
They are just, so our favorite thing to do is I'll find dancing videos for them on YouTube, or Lindsay Sterling music videos, or
I love Lindsay Sterling.
I know, and
Yeah.
of course she does both, right? So there's often dancing, and
Which
so
I'm like, how are you doing that? How are you playing? Anyway.
it's gotten so fancy though, and she has all these fun dancers who dance with her, but anyway, but yeah, so so it's just really, really cool to see that and know but like, just wonder like how much of that is organic, how much of it's inorganic, you know, because
Right.
it's not like I've been doing that in front of them ever since they were born, you know?
Yeah.
But I can see that passion and that aliveness every time they encounter it, and they beg for more and they just want it, and they have ever since they've been exposed to it. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's just cool. Just thinking
that
about
is
that.
interesting because, you know, like when you start having the kids and the kids become old enough to like things,
Yeah,
you're
right.
kind of assuming like, well, they'll like what I tell them to like, right?
Nope.
And sometimes yes, but a lot
Let's
of times
talk about
no.
how Bethany used to dress herself.
Yeah, and so that means there'll be some things that you like and your kids also like too. So you're like, yes, we have this in common.
Right.
Cool. And other things, they just start loving, and you're like, where did
Where'd that
this
come
come
from?
from?
Yeah, exactly.
And that is really fascinating. I wonder if my parents thought that about me a lot. And
Right.
it's just a rite of passage for all parents. Like, why is my one kid super into rugby? Okay, we'll go to a rugby game. Yeah.
Right. Well, and I mean, I said this in another podcast, but like that is one of the things that's so fascinating about when your children become young adults and adults, that they can in turn share things with you that like Emmy absolutely loves music that I would normally never run across, and she shared it with me, and books and things like that. And then Bethany is freaking like an expert on all things Broadway, and I always liked it, but that the enrichment that we can get from one another. And it's fun to look back on the things we used to love, or that we loved early, and see like that through line.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to meditate on this through line now. Mm-hmm. As we all drive our separate ways.
Yeah. And I mean, whether God put that in us first and who we were is what made us gravitate toward Charlotte's Web or whatever. Or if those things formed us, it's still become integral to kind of who we are, right? Yeah. And it's just fun, like as parents, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or even just sharing, with friends or whoever. If you're not.
Yeah.
Anyway, so things are winding down at the Anselm Society Digital Pub. Charlotte, I think, is finished with her
Charlotte has
latest
died.
web. But Wilbur is alive.
Wilbur's alive though.
She sacrificed her life. Ooh, hey, she's kind of a type of Christ, Charlotte. Anyway, that's for another podcast. The fire is down to embers. The customers are trundling home, and you've polished off your final glass. Once again, Believe to See is a podcast of the Anselm Society Arts Guild. If you have a minute, we would love for you to rate and review the show. 5 stars would be wonderful. 6 if that's possible. On Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Go revisit those books you loved as a kid. We will catch you next time.